What is your name?
Ramsay Snow.
From this day until your last day, you are Ramsay Bolton, son of Roose Bolton, Warden of the North.
Will we go home now?
To our new home.
I'm a bastard. Kneel before me, and you'll rise again as Jon Stark, Lord of Winterfell.
The 998th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow.
The Maester gave you a Raven scroll.
My marriage proposal has been accepted.
I gave my word I can give my life for yours if need be.
You should leave.
You think she's safe with Littlefinger? We'll follow them.
Cersei has offered a lordship to the man who brings her your head.
How many dwarves are there in the world?
Cersei going to kill them all.
Cousin Lancel.
They call themselves sparrows.
I found peace in the light of the Seven. You can too.
Our baby boy's set to marry that smirking whore from Highgarden.
If she doesn't marry me, you're trapped here with Cersei Lannister as your mother by law.
Perhaps.
You betrayed me.
Forget.
You sold my secrets. I do not want you in my city. Who are you?
A man is no one, and that is who a girl must become.
Your brother was murdered. And you sit here in the water gardens, staring at the sky and doing nothing.
We had a hint last year of the characters we introduced from Dorne, and so this year we had the challenge of creating Dorne.
Dorne is the southernmost of the Seven Kingdoms. It's the southeast corner of Westeros, set off from the rest of the continent by a high range of mountains.
Part of the reason Oberyn was able to be as free as he was is because he wasn't the oldest, whereas Prince Doran stayed in Dorne and did the boring work of learning how to rule.
And Prince Doran is a character who is very committed to the well-being of his people.
He's calm and collected, this character. He's an arch diplomat.
The whole country would have you go to war.
Then we are lucky the whole country does not decide.
Doran definitely runs against the prevailing characteristics of the Dornish, who are hot-blooded.
Hota is the only reason I'm alive. If I have a problem, he will deal with it physically. He's this mountain of a man who makes sure that I don't get into trouble.
For me, he's a really intense inner character that doesn't say much, but is a protective presence for the prince.
The prince does not wish to be disturbed.
We also meet, for the first time in a couple of seasons, Marcella, Jaime and Cersei's daughter.
My character wasn't happy with going at first, but she found her life here and she totally fell in love with Trystane.
Most arranged marriages can be pretty miserable. For us, I guess we hit the jackpot.
Miss Lannister girl skips about the water gardens, eating our food, breathing our air. How many of your brothers and sisters do they have to kill?
We realized that there's nowhere on Earth that looks more like the water gardens than the royal gardens at the Alcazar.
The Water Gardens is a palace where the princes of Dorne have had a residence.
The first time I walked on here, it did take my breath away. It was absolutely lovely.
It was Dorne when we scouted it. It was almost as if we had made the costumes off of the colors.
Well, it's not a set, it's a real palace. I mean, it's not a set. That's what's so extraordinary about our set.
It's tremendous. Many people have asked to shoot here in the past, and nobody's been allowed.
This place is very difficult to shoot because it's protected by the UNESCO. I've tried in other times, and it's been no possible.
It was an easy process once we gained their trust and that we treated it with respect.
Although we haven't had to create very much there because it existed and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever filmed in. We're kind of adding little accents of colour in just to try and emphasise the differences between the worlds. So orange colours that I think you'll probably see a lot in the costumes, but also in the flowers that we've put in. The tiling that we recreated in the balcony was based on patterns that existed in other parts of the Alcazar, but we did our own versions that incorporated the sunflower.
There's a real vibrancy and energy about the place, and the plants and everything is just so much more exotic than anything else we've seen before.
For us, the idea of having the Dornish royalty living in this fantastic palace with the gardens surrounding them all sides seemed the perfect place to have this very sensual, luxury-loving group of people.
And we're just incredibly grateful to the Spanish government for letting us shoot in truly one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. So, easy peasy question. Now tell me which is easier to work with,
CGI direwolves, babies, or White Walkers?
CGI direwolves, because they're not actually there. You can sort of zone them out if you need to.
Tennis ball on a stick's not going to cause you any problems on the day.
Really? Is that so? Tennis ball?
Yeah,
that's what we were, tennis ball on a stick, yeah.
And sometimes they have the cardboard cutout dog as well.
Yeah, or sometimes they have a real a huge stuffed wolf.
Stuffed one, yeah.
Which is, you know, mildly unsettling, but it doesn't cry.
And so of the three, which is the worst?
Don't say
I wouldn't say babies are the worst. I think babies are at times challenging. But I think at other times the most rewarding by far.
Definitely.
We had some incredible stuff with the kids this year.
And we picked and we were given great kids to work with.
Yeah. Wonderful kids.
Because they, you know, I mean it must be strange. People get a bit freaked out by Game of Thrones when they know what it is and what's happening. But when you're a baby who is used to people going around in polo shirts and stuff, and then suddenly you're in a horse-drawn carriage with me with a big leather tunic on, and Hannah in rags, and we both don't look our best. It must be disconcerting for the poor thing. But you just got to be patient.
But I think it's the very reason why they're difficult is also the reason why they're wonderful, is that you don't know what they're going to do and how they're going to respond, and they're completely in the moment and completely alive. And I felt like this year
it's best to keep them completely alive if you possibly can. A couple of slip-ups.
But no, I think this year there was some really wonderful stuff where I felt like we were really kind of acting off them, and you know they give you so much, but they also, if they're in a bad mood, they will tell you about it. Whereas a tennis ball on a stick kind of
it's
consistent.
It's a consistent performance from a tennis ball on a stick, but it lacks nuance.
All right, guys, tell me, things are looking a little warmer for you this season. So you're working in a different location. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, we were really, really lucky, and we got to go to Spain this year, which was amazing. It was an incredible experience, and especially, I mean, John had been to Iceland before. I'd never been out of Belfast, so it was just really exciting to have a change. And I think it's also exciting for the characters to have a change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So John, how will the Tali family reunion look like? You know, with Gilly and the baby in the picture.
It's a huge moment for Sam. It really is, because the last time he was in that environment was when he was getting unceremoniously booted out of it. So it's almost come full circle. The thing that I found interesting about that when I found out that those characters were being cast was because they've been referred to so much, especially Randall's been referred to so much. He's been a character in the show before he's appeared on screen. And then you find out he's been cast, you see the actor playing him, you see his performance, and you think, oh, all the time I was talking about Randall before, I was talking about that guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't what I had in my head, but you cast him in retrospect. So when I was talking to Gilly about Randall in season 3, that was the guy I was talking about. So it's interesting that these characters who've been such a part of my imagination and such a part of Sam's psyche are now made real. That was very exciting for me.
Great. So I guess let's talk about you, John.
Yeah, let's do that.
Where we last left off, you were totally unaware of John's demise. So how would you think Sam would respond to the news?
He wouldn't respond very well. He'd be
respond very well.
He'd be devastated. But there's a masochistic side of Sam, where he's felt to blame for everything since the day he was born, and he would feel partially to blame for it. He'd feel if he was there, even if he could have had no effect on it at all, he'd think if I was there, I could have changed it. I could have done something that would have talked them out of it or made it different. So he'd have the mourning, and he'd have a bit of guilt as well, because he never lets himself off the hook.
You stand in the presence of Kinvara, High Priestess of the Red Temple of Volantis, the Flame Truth, the Light of Wisdom, the first servant of the Lord of the Light. Welcome to Marine. That's about the extent of my Valerian. Do you mind if we continue in common? Thank you for travelling all this way. I know from personal experience how uncomfortable the journey can be. The truth is, we need your help. Our hope is that we can persuade you to...
You want my priest to convince the Marinese that the city's conqueror is the people's saviour?
We prefer liberator to conqueror.
You don't have to persuade me of anything. I came to help. Daenerys Stormborn is the one who was promised. From the fire she was reborn, to remake the world.
Yes?
She freed the slaves from their chains and crucified the masters of their sins.
She did indeed.
Her dragons are fire made flesh, a gift from the Lord of Light. But you've heard all of this before, haven't you? On the long bridge of Atlantis. The dragons purify non-believers by their thousands, burning their sins and flesh away.
Ideally, we'd avoid purifying many non-believers. The mother of the dragon has followers from many different faiths.
You want your queen to be worshipped and obeyed. And while she's gone, you want her advisors to be worshipped and obeyed.
I'd settle for obeyed.
I will summon my most eloquent priests. They will spread the word. Daenerys has been sent to lead the people against the darkness. For this war. And the great war yet to come.
That sounds excellent. A man named Stannis Baratheon was appointed as the chosen one by one of your priestesses. He too had a glorious destiny. He attacked King's Landing and was soundly defeated by the man standing beside me. Last I heard, he had been defeated again. This time at Winterfell, and this time for good. We are grateful for any support you can provide the Queen during this trying time. I suppose it's hard for a fanatic to admit a mistake. Isn't that the whole point of being a fanatic? You're always right. Everything is the Lord's will.
Everything is the Lord's will. Men and women make mistakes. Even honest servants of the Lord.
And you? An honest servant of the Lord? Why should I trust you to know any more than the priestess who counselled Stannis? My friend has a healthy scepticism of religion, but we're all loyal supporters of the Queen.
Everyone is what they are and where they are for a reason. Terrible things happen for a reason. Take what happened to you, Lord Rayner, when you were a child. If not for the mutilation by the second-rate sorcerer, you would not be here, helping the Lord's chosen bring light into this world. Knowledge has made you very powerful, but there is still so much you don't know. Do you remember what you heard the night the sorcerer tossed your parts into the flames? Should I tell you what the voice said? Should I tell you the name of the one who spoke or where it lives? We serve the same Queen. If you are a true friend, you have nothing to fear from me.
So guys, how does it feel to be like one of the biggest, baddest guys on TV these days?
Good.
Yeah, it's an honour.
So did they get any better or better this season?
Worse. Yeah.
Worse because they have more power.
Yeah.
How dark does it get?
They're very, well, we can't tell you, but they have a lot of power, and they're very good at holding on to power, and I suppose their main strategy this year is holding on to that and defending themselves against.
They're a pretty good father and son team, huh?
Well, yeah, they're pretty messed up, but they are good.
They get stuff done, don't they?
They do, and he has his values. And, he does. He was very good at the end of last season when he went out and he only needed 20 men, and he achieved it very well. So he's worth hanging on to, even though he is quite a liability.
So Ewan, I'm interested to know the extent of Ramsay's ambition. Are his motivations to win his father's heart and win his father's acceptance, or really to conquer Westeros?
I guess there's both in a weird way. Winning his father's acceptance has always been a huge part of his life, and it's probably been the biggest ambition of his, I'd imagine. Throughout his life. So, and I guess, and we've seen him gaining that acceptance, but it's still always a fight, and you see that the stakes are always very high in that sense, because it's a very difficult world to live in, and there's always a lot of things that can go wrong to ruin whatever you had planned. So I guess it is getting his father's acceptance more than anything. But then, everyone's got ambition to sit on that throne at some point, haven't they?
So what's the worst thing a fan has ever said to either of you? Or both of you?
A lot of people say they want to punch me in the face.
That's all?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get anything too bad.
What about you, Michael?
No, I get total respect. I guess. Yeah. I guess. No, generally people are quite normal and realise you're only an actor.
Yeah.
But, you get people who... I've got a few Lord Boltons and they've covered their heads. Fairly intense-looking dudes with a lot of piercings. And
someone came up to me and said, Ramsay Snow. I said, that's Lord Bolton to you. No, people know, don't they? They know you're an actor, I think.
Yeah.
Very nice. Now, Michael, your character's motivations are maybe a little bit different from Ewan's. So, if hypothetically you were in a position to choose between marrying a Cersei Lannister or a Daenerys Targaryen, who would it be?
Oh,
it's a tricky question.
That's a very tricky question. Depends, because it's a roller coaster ride of success, isn't it? One minute you're up and the next minute you're down, really.
Yeah.
So Cersei's kind of down at the moment, but I think he'd marry whoever he needs to marry in order to gain power and control. So I suppose Daenerys at the moment.
Vala Morghulis.
Valadahides.
How challenging do things get on set with your contact lenses? You can tell me about funny things.
I whinged quite a lot, didn't I?
Did you?
Actually, I wasn't really with you much.
No, I thought you were pretty good.
I was all right. I had my scenes with Tom with my lenses in at the beginning of the season, and then towards the end of the season, my eyes got more and more tired, and I was with Faye a lot, and that was when the whinging started. It was difficult. It was far more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But it looks great from
so your
the
vision
pictures.
was
the good thing is when she's got
compromised.
the lenses in, she can't see anything, so you can
swear at me, whatever.
Pull faces.
Don't know what's going on. No, I forgot your question.
No, so how funny do things get on set?
We have a good laugh, don't we?
You think so?
Oh, well, I think we have a good laugh. I feel like I'm hilarious, but I don't think Tom finds me very funny.
No, I do find you funny.
That's good.
So Tom, your character is one mysterious dude. So, can you tell me a little bit, what are his motivations? What does he want?
Well, if I told you my motivations, then I wouldn't be mysterious anymore, would I?
And you need to be speaking in third person now.
No, my motivations, well, that's to find out in this season, and who knows.
Very nice. Okay, so Maisie, some Chinese fans call you the Mulan of Westeros. She is this, a famous female heroine in Chinese history. So tell me, what kind of heroics do we expect this season? Give us a little bit.
This season, Arya gets really broken down and she goes through a really, really difficult process and she's totally stripped back. And we've seen that before, but this time it's a lot more physical.
Okay.
And I think that you really get to see her almost break and almost give up. There's moments in this series where she's incredibly vulnerable, and I think that's really interesting because although she's had a lot of very difficult things to deal with throughout the series, we've never seen her come this close to giving up, and to come back from that is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's what the training is about, to push her limits and to get her to a point where she hasn't been before.
Okay. So Tom, would you say you are the kind of like a warped fatherly figure to what Maisie's character is desperately seeking?
Well, I'm certainly teaching her things. I'm not sure I'm a fatherly figure. I teach her things. We don't know yet why that is. I mean, if maybe Jaqen has a secret agenda to his own. I mean, fans always assumed after the first season or after season 2 that he was only there to help her. But we don't know that. I mean, he might pursue his own goals.
I think also the answer to that question comes from Arya's point of view, because Jaqen's helping Arya, or hindering, depending on which way you look at it. And I think it's up to Arya to decide whether she takes that on as positive help and advice, or she finds it like more of a head-on battle, I guess.
Okay. So you mentioned that most of your scenes were shot apart.
A couple of our scenes this year were apart.
Okay. So Tom, your character obviously has an interesting way of speaking. So do you find yourself slipping up and breaking into like normal speech, on set during the filming?
Yeah, a man speaks like this all the time now. A man finds it really difficult to get back to his normal speech patterns. No, it's actually I can still tell reality and fiction apart.
My name is Jeff Nishinaka. I'm a paper sculptor. I've been doing it for about 35 years now, and grew up in Los Angeles. A sculpture is three-dimensional, but the work I do is more in relief, so I'm kind of like between 2D and 3D. So it's not like you can walk around a sculpture that I make. You basically have to see it from straight on. Everything I do is very labor-intensive. When I cut these big pieces out, I have to control my breathing. I can't even talk. I am a big Game of Thrones fan, and I am hooked. It's I think, one of the most amazing shows that I've ever seen. You never know what's going to happen next. There are a lot of cliffhanger moments, and then there are moments where you see them just falling off the cliff, like, oh my God, okay, well that's that. That character's gone. The reason why I chose this particular scene is because it really does have a huge emotional impact. I mean, there's this crazy White Walker dude who's raising his hands, and he's like bringing these people back to life, these zombies. It's kind of one of those like, oh my God moments. You see Jon Snow and he's like speechless. White Walker, white paper. I thought, I can do this. Do the research. I actually got in front of the TV and started taking pictures of it. His epic moment is when he raises his hands, right? So you have to think a lot about anatomy and about how things work, even how the muscles are working in his back, because if the muscles aren't working in his back, he can't pull his shoulders back. So then I have to blow up a drawing to that exact size because my drawings have to be the same size as the finished sculpture. In order for me to create texture, I basically have to cut the texture. And it's not just a matter of putting down a bunch of abstract shapes or odd shapes and just, throwing them down and bam, it's done. It's actually designing the shapes so that everything works together in light and shadow. I can't wait to see it in the environment with the lighting. That's what completes it. That's it. I mean, that's the moment of truth.
One of the many great things about our show is the combination of what's real and what's not. That's what separates this show from a lot of things, because we're willing to go the distance in terms of reality. If it was all VFX, we would be in Studio City right now. We're on the Mediterranean coast of Spain because we need this. We need it in our skin, we need the sun and ancient castles that the Moors built. This is Spanish dirt underneath my fingernails. Can't get that in the studio.
Spain is so massive with its locations and looks. We thought that we could do it as a bit of a traveling show this year. And we had so many new worlds that we had to visit that we went from the northern part of Spain all the way down to the south.
There was 5 different big locations, 5 cities to go to. Spain's geography gives you the north, which is a little more green, the south, which has a lot of desert. But the variety you could get in Spain was great.
So when we started the journey in Girona, we were there for 2 weeks, all over the city center, because Girona is a nice place, a really beautiful city.
Yeah, we went to Girona. Beautiful town, beautiful little medieval town, and the perfect setting for Game of Thrones.
From Girona, we traveled about 600 kilometers west to Bardenas Real, which is a desert close to the Pyrenees Mountains.
So yes, we got a lot of beautiful desert, which was fun. It was all incredible. The landscape was insane. It was just beautiful.
From there, we went on to a place called Castillo de Zafra, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's in a place of Spain called the Siberia, Spain, because it's known as being the coldest part of Spain.
But the location was absolutely unreal. It genuinely looked like a set. And then you looked over these massive plains as if you were in sort of the plains of Africa. And it was just like, okay, wow, this is the coolest place to be able to act and work.
From there, our journey took us to Peníscola. Peníscola is a coastal place. Its old town is a single rock sitting right in the Mediterranean Sea. After Peníscola, we ended up coming here, which is the last of our 5 areas, not the last location, because within this area, within Almeria, which is where we are right now, we have, again, 5 different locations.
I lost track of the amount of different locations that we've used, but every year you come back to Game of Thrones, there's a couple of those wow moments, and being here on location just outside of Almeria was definitely one of those wow moments for me.
It's been good coming back here, and I'll never lose that thrill as an actor. I mean, yeah, you get it on different films, but I get it in spades on Game of Thrones. You come and you see the work that people have done, and the population here are madly passionate about the series as well. So we always get, extras that are well up for it.
We experienced last year the caliber of extras that we got in Spain. And again, it was just repeated. I've just never worked with such hard-working, happy to be there people. It just infects the whole set. There's just a wash of happiness and confidence and people taking it seriously. And it is a joy. It was a joy.
The show being back to Spain means a lot for Spain. To host Game of Thrones is a big honor for everybody, and it's a big show for everybody. So everybody's really, really thrilled. The people are thrilled. No matter where you go, they're like, wow. And it's fun to watch, and it's really great to be part of that.
Getting into the world of prosthetics was always something I really wanted to do. I grew up in the north of England. My father was manager of a local cinema. I sort of grew up with Star Wars and all the science fiction films of the 70s. I spent a lot of my childhood in my bedroom covering myself in latex, blood and gore. Quite early on I realised I wanted to make creatures and monsters. Things out of rubber, basically. So a show like Game of Thrones is kind of like a bucket list. We will actually concept and design the characters. A lot of our crew concentrate on painting. A lot of guys are from a very sculptural sort of background, hairdressing, definitely an artistic process. Whatever the brief is for the character, we have to be practical about things. The artist is going to be able to wear this stuff day in, day out. It's not too heavy, they're going to be able to breathe. So to create a prosthetic makeup and apply it to an actor is very much a team effort. From your sculpting, your mold makers, your people who run silicons, people who put hair onto pieces, you could have a team of 10, 15, 20 people who could do the whole process from start to finish. And then you could have 2 to 5 people on the day actually gluing these pieces on. So it's definitely a team effort, and it's something I couldn't be responsible for myself. The build of a character would usually start with a life cast, basically making a mould of the actor's head, which we can then make duplicate heads out of. We would then sculpt the makeups and all the forms in a modelling clay all over the head, and then we would make moulds of the modelling clay basically on the formers of their face. Once we have our moulds, the majority of our appliances are made out of silicone rubber, which can be glued to the face, and then the edges can be blended away. We might be applying hair, which are usually punched in with a very fine needle, all individually. And then we would need to do duplicate sets of prosthetic appliances for every single day that the character films. It's all quite a painstaking process, really, from start to finish. We usually say an average kind of build time is about 4 weeks for a prosthetic character. Our daily process in the prosthetics department, we'd usually have like 2-3 a.m. calls, get our artists in the chair. The process of gluing them into their prosthetics is usually about 2 to 3 hours, and the guys would then travel to hair. The moment we start with these guys to the moment they step onto set, it could be 5 or 6 hours. And then we would have a filming day of, say, about 8, 9, 10 hours, following the artists around all day, is prodding them and maintaining the makeup. Then at the end of the day, we'd then have the de-rigging process, which involves us basically peeling the prosthetics off with a brush and mineral oils. And so you can't just rip these things off, because it would take a layer of the skin with it. And then we would usually be the last out at the end of the day. What makes Game of Thrones so special? I don't think I've ever worked on a project that's got such a varied amount of prosthetics and you have such a variety of things to make that it's very rare you'll be on a project and you'll be decapitating somebody the one week and then you'll be doing a full body prosthetic the next week. But the most enjoyable memories was probably the end of Hardhome last year. It was very cold, wet, muddy, smoke, snow. We had it all going on. We were covering them in loads of rubber each day. At times it felt like pandemonium, and then you just look across and have a look at the monitor, and it was so cleverly choreographed and orchestrated. You couldn't believe what you were seeing on film was what was right next to you. The feeling of achievement was incredible. I think that's probably one of the best memories I'll take home so far from Game of Thrones.
You said there was no Jack and Hagar here. Well, who are you then?
No one. And that is who Igor must become.
The House of Black and White is a temple and the headquarters, for lack of a better word, of the Faceless Men.
The priests of the many-faced God are also paid assassins in a sense, but there's always a religious aspect to what they do.
Jaqen was this person who could magically disappear. It makes perfect sense that this would be very appealing to Arya.
She's traveled all this way. She doesn't really have a direction. When she gets into the House of Black and White, she realizes there's a lot more going on than she originally thought.
The House of Black and White is an interesting visual effects challenge for a couple of reasons. It's a combination of set piece by the art department in CG that extends to its full super height.
The black and white doors were described as being 12 feet tall. They were always to be very rectangular. What was wonderful about them was to see Arya next to those doors.
The House of Black and White consists of many different halls. One of the bigger ones is the atrium, where a big fountain stands. All the people receive the drink of death.
It just needed to be ancient and huge, like you were in a giant, giant cave where there's no windows, there's no natural light, and some candles on the floor. So it's also a little bit disorienting.
The idols of many of the different deities worshipped in this world are placed, and people can come here and pray and try to find solace.
What the room tries to do is to remain neutral, like in a gallery. These pieces can each have the same level of importance because each god means something very deep and personal to the person who's coming here. The iron door ultimately leads to the corpse washing room, where the corpses are taken and then prepared. Similar to a morgue, we have a big slab of stone where the body would be placed, and Arya has to learn how the body is prepared.
Once people are dead, their faces get taken from them and put up for further use.
So with the Hall of Faces, there was always a big question as to how much of this space would be practical and how much of it would be in visual effects.
We wanted it to be mystical and creepy, but at the same time feel like an actual space.
These faces are somehow stored, but also part of the architecture.
We've built approximately 600 faces. We've tried to have a mix of as many different sort of races and ages, face shapes and sizes as possible. Done a few on the team, so we've got David and Dan in there. One face that Arya is touching, it's actually turned out to be my mum. She was delighted. She's like, oh my God, I'm going to tell everybody I'm in Game of Thrones.
It's the most impressive set that I've been into, but that's not even all of it. It goes on for pillars and pillars and pillars and goes up for meters and meters.
Largely, whichever direction you look, it's giant pillars covered in faces, like a hall of mirrors in that way. It's disorienting because it's so the same in all directions, and it's so big.
Seeing all of those eyeless faces looking at you when you walk down those columns, I think it really helps the actors get into the scene, to be in the middle of something that is as deeply weird and wonderful as the Hall of Faces.
Handsome one, isn't he? I lost my first boy, little black-haired beauty. He was a fighter too. Tried to beat the fever that took him. Forgive me.
That scene, more than any other scene, probably speaks to the complexity of who Cersei is as a person and as a character, where she can be telling the story and actually eliciting the sympathy from you while you're watching the story. You're like, wait a minute, you know, and you can forget what it was she participated in that led her to be in this room with this crippled boy in a coma telling the story in the first place.
She's always manipulative. At the same time, I believe her that she was distraught at the death of her son, and you can be two things at once, and I think that's one of the things that makes her a compelling character, is she's very complicated.
Such a little thing. Bird without feathers.
She is inscrutable. You know, you never know what she's thinking or what her motives are. And I don't know that it was so much of a manipulation. Yeah, I think there was some underhanded stuff happening there and obviously some lying. But there was like a great moment there, a humanizing moment for the character.
I pray to the mother every morning and night that she return your child to you. Perhaps this time she'll listen.
Why'd you read so much?
My brother has a sword, and I have my mind. And a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
The way Tyrion talks about it, which makes sense, is that his older brother Jaime is a great sword fighter, and Jaime is famous. You know, he's probably one of the most talented knights in the Seven Kingdoms, and because of that, he's brought glory to the Lannister house. Tyrion obviously can't claim any of that. He's never going to win a tournament. He's never going to do anything particularly impressive physically. That's not a gift he has. What he does have is a really powerful brain. He's very smart, and so rather than trying to be something that he isn't, he chooses to try to accentuate what he does have and make his brain that much more powerful.
Tyrion is an intellectual and reads voraciously, and he likes to see what the world has to offer, and there's kind of nothing more amazing in this world than a very high wall of ice built by people thousands of years ago. He's kind of less interested in the intrigues and the courtly comings and goings than he is in things that he probably sees as having more ultimate value.
The greatest structure ever built, the intrepid men of the Night's Watch, the wintry abode of the White Walkers.
There's great honor serving in the Night's Watch. The Starks have manned the wall for thousands of years.
Ned is not an emotionally demonstrative person. He isn't somebody who tells his children that he loves them on a regular basis, even though he does, and he think he loves Jon, even though he probably says it even less often to Jon because there are just so few opportunities where that kind of confession is appropriate.
You might not have my name. You have my blood.
This is the only viable place for Jon to go, and that's what it's about for Ned. It really is about what he perceives as best for Jon, even though he knows full well that the Night's Watch is no picnic.
Jon's grown up with the stories about the Night's Watch and their heroism and this kind of chivalric idea in his mind that they are the defenders of the North and these noble warriors protecting those in the South from monsters and so forth. The reality of the Night's Watch, especially now, is that they've fallen upon hard times. So Jon Snow has a kind of outdated notion of what life at the Wall is really like.
The Night's Watch protects the realm.
Ah, yes, yes. Against grumpkins and snarks and all the other monsters your wetness warned you about. You're a smart boy. You don't believe that nonsense.
My son Jorah fled Westeros. He brought dishonor to our house.
I need to turn this bunch of thieves and runaways into men of the Night's Watch.
And how's that going, Commander Mormont?
I shall have your head!
You're taking us through Valyria. The Doom still rules Valyria.
Stone men.
Did any of them touch you? You?
The Eyrie is mine. The last time the Lords of the Eyrie formed an alliance with the Lords of the North, they brought down the greatest dynasty this world has ever known. Cersei sent for me.
I expect I'll be a married woman by the time you return.
I hope I can make her happy.
She's suffered enough.
I'll never hurt her.
All sinners are equal before the gods.
What would you say if I told you of a great sinner in our very midst?
May the Father judge him justly.
Who do you think you are? Justice.
Your brother was murdered while you sit here doing nothing. The Sand Snakes are with me.
Without Doran, we have no army to march against the Lannisters.
Queen Cersei loves her children, and we have one of them.
We're rescuing my niece, bringing her back to her family. You ever been to Dorne?
The Dornish are crazy.
If he gets to her before we do, we lose our only chance for revenge.
Here we serve the many-faced god. To serve well, the girl must become noble.
What do we do with them after we wash them?